Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Excuse my more casual attire today, but I'm off to Kigali for a function there tomorrow. Looking forward to going back. We were there last for a function with the First Lady, and prior to that for a Mind Speak. And looking forward to that enormously. If you haven't seen Jacques Peterlou's Mind Speak, please take a look. That link is on the website. And if you didn't see that inside story I did about BRICS, then that link is there as well. Macro thoughts start with a headline that Bloomberg mentioned. This is a People's Daily headline in China. Rainbows always appear after rains. Home Thoughts, the Independent tweeted, the jaw-dropping astronomy photographer of the year. And look at this, it's pretty marvellous, isn't it? The Milky Way. What goes around may come around, but it never ends up exactly the same place. You ever notice? Like a record on a turntable, all it takes is one groove's difference, and the universe can be onto a whole another song. I dream that I've found us both again, with spring so many strangers' lives away, and we so free out walking by the sea. With someone else's paper words to say, they took us at the gates of green return, too lost by them to stop and ask them why. Do children meet again? Does any trace remain along the superhighways of July? Thomas Pynchon, Kenya Pics, tweeted this wonderful photograph. Another flamboyant sunrise in paradise. Diane, no filters. Carlos Entreno tweeted, Pluto is brown-orange. I never thought it'd be that way. I never thought about its colour at all. And then this photograph of the sun setting in a smoke-filled sky due to Canadian wildfires burning in Alberta and Saskatchewan on July the 6th. Zuma, feel very hungry today, and food there is really delicious. Political reflections. John Kerry says he's continuing to discuss difficult issues this AM, working diligently to see if an agreement is possible. A senior Iranian official in a briefing to journalists said there have been changes of positions and walking back from positions. In unusually bitter remarks, he also complained the six world powers negotiating with Iran in Vienna were no longer sticking to a common position. It's not like a multilateral negotiation, it's like we're doing 5 bilateral negotiations, the official said. Everyone now has their own red line. There is one red line for the US, there is one red line for the UK, there is one red line for France, one red line for Germany. They come to us and say, I'm flexible on his red line, but not on mine. The Iranian official spoke after US Secretary of State John Kerry insisted there was no rush in bringing the long-running negotiations over Iran's nuclear negotiations to a conclusion, and the talks look certain to go past a deadline set by the US Congress. Failure to meet the target of midnight Washington time will mean that the legislature has 2 months instead of 1 to review any agreement, potentially giving time for its opponents to rally. Zarif says we're working hard but not rush to get the job done. Mark my words, you can't change horses in the middle of a stream, he says. And I concluded by saying if this crumbles like a stale biscuit, I think it will be a serious setback. Photocom Dilma tweeted, Janta de gala na Rusia digno de uma reina para nossa presidenta. And it's quite a sort of jolly looking photograph of them all together in Russia. According to global research, General Dempsey said this, Israel and Jordan believe the Assad regime could soon collapse. touching off a foot race of Al-Qaeda and IS forces converging on Damascus. And that might well be right. I'll put up a tweet I saw of the shrine of John the Baptist, which is in Damascus. International Markets, Greece, is seeking a $59.2 billion bailout as Tsipras bows to demands. In an 11th hour bid to stay in the euro, the government of Tsipras offered to meet most of the demands made by creditors in exchange for a bailout of 53.5 billion euros. The proposal submitted to European institutions late Thursday almost mirrored the one from creditors on June 26, which was rejected by voters in a July 5 referendum. We are definitely closer to a deal than ever, as Tsipras has in the end given in. This is Jakob Kierkegaard, and he's right. Interestingly, between the 28th of June and July 4th at a Hilton hotel in Athens, transactions on a Bloomberg Reporter's Visa credit card issued by Citigroup posted as being carried out in drachma EQ. The inexplicable notation, bear in mind the euro remains Greece's official currency, flummoxed two very polite customer service representatives and spokesmen for the companies involved. It depicts a currency changeover that the Greek government and European officials had been working for over 6 months to avoid. Let's go to the currency markets. The euro 111.08, dollar index just above 96, Japanese yen 122.14, the Swissy, when I looked at last, 0.9465, the pound 154.41. That's had quite a bounce. The Aussie is at 0.7456. India rupee, which has been incredibly stable, 63.415. South Korean 111.2956. Rial 322.45. Egyptian pound, which has been on the losing streak, 782.92, and the rand just below 12.50 at 12.45.56. Put out the 3-month chart of the dollar index. We've been doing a bit of work around here for a while now. Euro dollar, let's see how far this can really rally. I'll put up a 3-month chart. I don't think above 112. At an extreme, I think they're just kicking the can down the road. Apple shares have been on a losing streak. Before that, Jamie at Reuters tweeted, Germany posts record 22.8 billion euro trade surplus in May. In the last 20 years, a surplus every single month, all 239 of them. And a weaker euro has suited Germany, particularly for their exports. You see that in that statistic. Apple, as I said, fell Thursday for a 5th day, posting its first consecutive 2% decline since 2013. 5-day loss is 5.2%. Stock is now down 9.7% from its record high on February the 23rd, leaving it about 40 cents away from a 10% correction. Nanex LLC zooming out to 20 seconds in Apple, see chart and previous tweet for context. Have a look at the visual is put up there, and I'll put up the second visual which he was referencing as well, where it says lots of buyers and sellers just missing each other. And on that note, I'll put up a photograph of the Maasai discovering an iPad Apple in the Sahara. When we went some years ago to Pynchon, we went there recently again. Commodity markets, world food costs extend slide to 5-year low. This is one good thing though. Global food prices extended a slide to a 5-year low last month as dairy prices tumbled. An index of 73 food prices from around the world dropped 0.9% last month to 165.1 points, the lowest since September 2009. In the case of dairy, it's very clear a policy change in the EU has made a big difference. Now that the quotas are abolished, we expect a big surplus, adding to the situation in New Zealand. Global dairy prices fell last month to the lowest level since September 2009, so that's a positive. particularly for people at the bottom of the pyramid, where food has an outsized impact. Gold is trading at 1162.71. I think you continue to sell it. Crude oil popping higher on positive Greek news. My target remains $44 a barrel. Emerging markets, ex-Xinhua News tweeted China's stocks decline over, joy time in the air. First Friday rally in 4 weeks. 1,000 firms up 10%. Key index up 4.5%. Chinese investors move in herds, said Samuel Chien, a partner of Shanghai-based hedge fund manager Boom Trend. After panic selling drove the market down to the extreme, prices are now starting to move in the other direction. Beijing's efforts appear to put a floor under the stock market for now, but it's still far from functioning normally. Around 1,300 of China's listed companies, nearly half the market, remain suspended. Insurers on Friday bought $18.1 billion of equities since the rout began. They can probably stabilize the market, but it will be a political decision, as they will have to compel government, state agencies, banks, pension funds, insurance companies to buy. Essentially, the political decision is to transfer the potential losses from private investors to the state in some manner. Moving to Tunisia, the British government on Thursday told all UK tourists to leave Tunisia because a terrorist attack is highly likely. Very interesting piece in the Daily Mail. Angola's resentful as China tightens its grip. We've had a halving of oil prices, leaving a gaping hole in Angola's finances this year, saying that when Angola needed help and needed it fast, they knew where to turn to. President Dos Santos turned to China. Multi-billion-dollar loans he signed with China last month have, however, angered Angolans who say they've been left behind as politicians in China share the spoils, and Africa's second largest oil producer becomes ever more reliant on Beijing. China's lent Angola around $20 billion since a 27-year civil war ended in 2002. I think the president humiliates Angolans, 35-year-old cook Marisa told Reuters, as she bartered with the street trade over peanuts and bananas in the capital. The agreements with China are a benefit for them and the president, not for us. Police visibility has increased in the streets of Luanda in response to public suspicion and dissent over how much the government would concede to Chinese interests in its bid to revive an economy hit by low crude prices. FLEC, a militant group that wants independence of the northern oil-rich exclave of Cabinda, demanded China repatriate all its citizens from the region within 2 months or risk of being severely punished. And somebody else saying lower oil prices have put Angola in a bit of a pickle. The most obvious place to turn to is China. If China can help Angola get out of the fiscal hole, then it could be a positive step. Always the Chinese will be the master and the Angolan the helper. This is our country, we should be in charge. We have always been slaves, we're lost in the world, we are the leftovers. Tricky times in Luanda, I feel. And, I think we'll have to see how Dos Santos and his government react. At the moment, it's a little bit hysterical in the reaction. France 24, Angola signs business deals from oil to hotels. This is a picture of Hollande and Dos Santos. Ken Roth, little to celebrate amidst the bloodshed and despair as South Sudan marks its 4th anniversary. And he's posted a photograph of a street in Juba. And then Gef Sukluk, today independence, South Sudan is 4 years old. Pics from the event in Juba. I'll put them up. The New York Times says it's a Potemkin celebration, they say, marking an occasion that was greeted with such great hope in 2011, but that now rings hollow for many. Indeed it does. South Sudan is the most oil-dependent country in the world, with oil accounting for almost the totality of exports. The government, of course, pays a set fee to Sudan, regardless of the price of oil, and is now making less than $10 a barrel, according to Western officials. Interesting research by Pew Research, which says income study highlights Africa's persistent poverty. Africa's middle-income population may be growing more slowly than many investors hope. According to the report, which analysed changes in income between 2001 and 2011, the middle class worldwide is growing strongly, swelling to 784 million from 399 million in 2001. Less than 5% of those 385 million new members of the global middle class are in Africa, however. Saying Africa's record on reducing poverty is slightly stronger, but it still lags the global average. Continent's low poverty rates dropped from around 50% to 40% between 2001 and 2011. So very interesting analysis, and the link for that report is there as well. Stock market volatility in China may bring bigger risks to the South African economy than Greece's possible exit from the Eurozone, according to Barclays. Unlike Greece, China is a very important country, directly to South Africa. It's the main market for export of iron ore. It's also a key source for global demand of commodities generally. China is South Africa's biggest trading partner, with exports and imports between the two nations amounting to $61.6 billion last year, exceeding trade with the EU, which stood at $55.2 billion. That's interesting. South African all share bounced hard and higher, up 2.42% yesterday. It's back up above 51,000. It's up 3.37% year to date. Dollar rand, when I checked last, 12.45. Interesting piece in BD Live, which says Sisi's iron fist adds to volatility in Egypt. And I think that's absolutely right. Despite the lessons of the past, Sisi is relying on fighter planes, mass arrests and death sentences to battle Islamist militants in a crackdown that could in fact prolong instability. Unlike former President Mubarak, whose more subtle approach induced even his most die-hard militant opponents to opt for a truce in the 1990s, Mr. Sisi's response is all-out confrontation. Egyptian pound lost trading at 7.82. I think that goes towards 8. Egyptian EGX 30 bounced after a losing streak, which has taken it down minus 14.665% year to date. We're now at 7,600. We were above 10,000 not too long ago. Nigeria all share fell sharply 1.89%. It's down 8.335% year to date. Ghana cedi, good news, rallied the most since February. Currency rose as much as 11% to 349 and was trading at 355 in the capital, Accra. Ghana Stock Exchange up 3.095% this year. Ugandan police have arrested 2 presidential aspirants on way to meetings. I am telling you, I am the police and I have arrested him. He has to stick to what the law requires. There's no going to Mbale. He's now under incarceration. This is Babazi, who was traveling to Mbale, a town near Uganda's border with Kenya, to do a consultative meeting with his supporters. Police also arrested another presidential aspirant, opposition leader Kizza Besigye, early on Thursday morning as he left his house. According to the Daily Monitor, Uganda UCC and Uganda UPF warned the media, "You are cautioned against negative and unprofessional trends." If you've never seen President Museveni's main speak session, you should, because he came like 4 hours late, and it was pretty interesting, I've got to say. Fascinating, actually. I'll put up a photograph of his hat as well. The Ugandan shilling weakened 1.8% early on Thursday before retracing its losses and trading 2.4% stronger. It's down 21% this year. Only the Tanzanian shilling has performed worse. And they've called a monetary policy meeting a month earlier than expected. Revolution in Burkina Faso is a documentary, The Fall of Compaoré, I found from Vice News, worth having a look at, and take you back to the 10th of November when I wrote about that, Ouagadougou's signal to sub-Saharan Africa. And I was saying what's clear is a very young, very informed, very connected African youth demographic, which many characterize as a demographic dividend, which for beautiful Blaise Compaoré turned out to be a demographic terminator, is set to alter the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects. And I said I thought a rebalancing has already begun. Maersk sees 10% East African freight growth as harbours develop. In East Africa, we're seeing increased political stability, growing middle class, infrastructure development, and oil resources that will drive growth. Coming to Kenya, Mumia Sugar, which is trading up 10% and at its daily limit today, said Errol Johnson, who had previously headed the company from 1998 to 2001, would take over from August 1st. The Kenya shilling is now popped over 101. The Nairobi All Share is down 2.025% this year and is at 2015 low. NSE 20 down 7% this year, 10 points above a multi-year low hit on 10th of June this year. And then some great photographs from a link I found, Samburu tribe in Kenya. Some lovely photographs. And, that link is at the very bottom of Rich Wrap-Ups if you care to take a look. Thank you. I look forward to going to Kigali and returning on Sunday. Thank you so much.